To the Cannabis Nurses of Color Speaker Series 2021. I'm so excited because it's a new year and we have some amazing speakers lined up for you guys. Today, it is my honor and pleasure to be here with Miss Tamara Anderson. She is a nurse. And one of the things that I love about her story, and one of the reasons why we really wanted to highlight her, is because we are nurses. And so we know nursing from a health care traditional setting, right? And so when you see nurses out here in the cannabis industry, they're doing so many different things. And I loved what Tamara was doing. I also love that she is a nurse, and so she brings a very special skill set to what she's doing. And then again, you know, it's like we keep talking about this, Ivory, but there's so many lanes in cannabis nursing, and so many people feel like, I don't know where to start or I don't know what to do. And so finding what you're passionate about and really diving deep into that, I think is always so important, because, you know, then you have amazing successes like Tamara had. So welcome, Tamara, to the Cannabis Nurses of Color Speaker Series. We're so excited to have you, and thank you so much for honoring us with being here tonight. We did not know it was Super Bowl Sunday because we're in pandemic bubble, and I think we forgot. Oh, look, it's a cutie. Hey.
Yes, he crept up the stairs. My daughter's supposed to be watching, but he crept up the stairs. You gonna say hi?
Hi, kids.
Hello.
Hello. It's okay.
Tamara!
My daughter's usually the one that sneaks in, but she happens to be gone right now. But yeah, one of the things that I think is exciting is your business is Culinary and Cannabis. So obviously,
Mommy, Daddy.
it's interesting because it's something that you're doing that's related to eating, right? And the senses of eating and indulging and having amazing foods, but also teaching people about cannabis and their endocannabinoid system and the health that the plant brings. So before we even dive into what culinary and cannabis is, how did you even come to the cannabis industry?
So my route to the industry is kind of I think any kind of way of before in the last 2 years was kind of unconventional and unexpected. So I am a registered nurse. I am also a self-trained pastry chef, but the pastries I cook are infused with alcohol. So we reside in Southern California, and in Southern California is the land of many celebrities and, you know, celebrity events. And so we ended up doing like launch parties, album release parties, red carpet events, and they would indulge in the desserts, but then on the side they would be like, well, do you bake with cannabis? And I'm like, I do, but not for you. I do, but not for you, sir. Not for you, sir. And after like maybe 2 or 3 years of being asked, like, do you do this? Do you do this? And I did, like, for my friends and family, but not to sell, because it was so hard already to get a license with cooking with alcohol. Right. I was like, it has to be 10 times harder to be doing it with cannabis, right? So after 2 or 3 years of getting asked about it, you know, we don't like to miss no money. We don't like to miss no green if we don't have to.
Exactly.
So I started researching, like trying to look for recipes that, you know, cook with cannabis. And there were tons of recipes out there, but none of them talked about the calculation or the dosage or like how much you put in there and how much, you know, somebody should be eating. The information wasn't available. So Culinary Cannabis was originally brought out of the need to extend a part of my business that I had already, but to gain the knowledge behind that. So that was one reason. The other reason is a personal reason, and it was because my son, I grew up in the Dare generation. My son, it was like, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you need to go to school, you know, all this is bad for you. But we moved to Orange County, California, particularly Irvine. When he was in the 7th grade, I think he started smoking when in between the 7th and 8th grade that summer, so 12 or 13. But these kids were getting the good, not the stuff that we smoked when we grew up. No. Like these kids were getting $200 and $300 a week allowance. So what they were smoking was potent and powerful, you know, consumption. And at this time, there were dispensaries around. So they had a little bit more knowledge and accessibility to better things than we did growing up. So we fought for 2.5 years of like, I don't want you to do this, finding it in, you know, unfamiliar places, him having a hole in his bed and hiding it under the hole in his bed, all those things. So I think one day I think he was 14 or 15. I came home from work with my daughter, picked her up from school. I came home and he was upstairs walking around naked, talking to the birds. I was like, did you smoke today? Yeah, Mom. Did you smoke with a friend? It was somebody I thought was my friend. I said, did it smell funny? Yeah, it kind of smelled funny. So I took him to the emergency room so we could deal with that. When he got home, I was like, you know what? I need you to write me a paper and research cannabis and the different strains, because I need you to be aware. If you're going to, obviously you're going to keep doing this. If this is what you're going to keep doing, I need you to be educated on what you're smoking, because this shit that happened can't happen. And we live in Orange County. And if you was out on the street doing what you was doing, you would have been in jail. They wouldn't have took you to the emergency room. That would have been a rap and it would have been on your record. And we can't have that. So after he wrote his paper and he came back, he was like, Mom, I just don't want to smoke the weed. He was like, I need to smoke the weed. He was like, I can't skateboard without it. I can't play soccer without it. I can't go to sleep at night without it. I can't go to school without it. Mind you, myself and my son have a rare medical condition, which is called Job syndrome, which a lot of people in the medical field don't even know what that is. But basically what it is your body doesn't fight off staph infection. You don't have the DNA to fight off staph infection. The link to make that DNA is missing. So, you know, susceptible to all kinds of infections, susceptible to pneumonia, on top of having eczema, so topical skin abscesses. But my son had tons of comorbidities. He had a benign tumor on his knee. He had scoliosis. He had body hypertrophy, which one side of his body was bigger than the other, and the sensitivity on it was not as great. So like he would roll over, the whole one side of his whole body was all scarred up, because whenever he would injure himself, he would roll to that side of his body because he couldn't feel it as much. So he just had way more comorbidities than I even had. So for him to be able to, you know, once he found out, for him to be able to function and operate with his friends, he found that he needed that. And I was like, okay, well, you're going to do this. You need to be versed. So my son was way more versed in cannabis than I was. But even at that time, it was like, okay, we know about the flower. I didn't know about topicals. I didn't know about putting it in your food so that, you know, it could help it didn't even know about the endocannabinoid system. It was just like, okay, you have this flower, you're going to smoke this flower. These are the strains that you should be looking for, but still didn't go beyond that. So I think that was 2014 is when that happened. So 2014. So then the combination of that with the learning how to food, culinary, and cannabis was birthed. But going into the space, and, you know, we as nurses, we're helpers, we're educators. It's naturally what comes to us. It's naturally what we do. Going into the space, I started finding people that were like, yeah, I want to learn how to cook it for my grandfather that has Alzheimer's, or my kid that has autism, or all of these things. And I was like, I just wanted to learn how to cook with it for this reason. But getting into the space, learning all the things that I could do to help benefit my son and benefit other people, it turned into a business and a brand. So that's how we got into the cannabis space. Totally not on purpose. Totally did not expect to be like as full as I am right now.
That's such an interesting story and an interesting testimony, because just how your son, you know, and I speak about this a lot and tell people, you got to allow people to evolve. So you had to evolve really, because your son is, you know, so what's interesting about cannabis medicine is nurses, we learn from our patients, or from, in your case, your son, you know, right. I learned, I started leaning into this space because of my patient. And so I tell people that. So it's just interesting how you know, as nurses, we're used to being the teachers and, you know, especially when it's all things medicine, but it can have the reverse effect, and we can learn about this space from unconventional ways. So that's just interesting about how you turn, you know, your son's really his testimony into your passion. And I was going to ask you about your son because you shared that with us before, and so I didn't know if you want to go into all of that with sharing about your story. So I guess in your business, I'm sure every day your focus now as you do this space, you're thinking about him and his impact in this space. So tell us a little bit more, because girl, you are doing it. You are really doing it, and we are so proud every time I see something that you post or something that you're doing. And I guess what I really like about it is you're doing it your own way. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I told Sandra, I almost feel like you're out of the traditional nursing bubble and you created your own lane. So tell us a little bit more about that lane and about exactly what it is that culinary and cannabis doing, because you've evolved so much and pivoted. So just give us a little bit more about telling us that about how you pivoted and what you're doing now.
Well, it definitely is nothing like what totally transformed from what our original purpose was and what we started doing. Originally, my purpose was to go into the space to learn how to cook for myself, to help other people to learn how to cook, and also highlight the chefs in the cannabis space. Because being in the culinary space and doing like food and wine events, if you've ever been to one, they give awards to chefs for one dish for like $10,000. $50,000
Mm.
for one chef, but none of these chefs were, well, they cook with cannabis, but none of them were cooking it with cannabis in that method. For me, cooking becomes more than just a nutritional value. When you add cannabis, it becomes a medicine, but it becomes a different way in order to administer medicine, especially to kids, especially to older people. But those people were not being highlighted. That wasn't being talked about, which to me is more important than you cooking me a fabulous steak that's cooked perfectly. Give a shit. Like, what is that going to do? It's going to fill me up, but it's not doing anything for me. So originally, that was our original purpose. Me and my great mind, in a way to like bring attention to the cooking events, we started our Canna Spa events, right? And our Canna Spa events are more of our focus now, but our Canna Spa events are events that I started in order to give people the opportunity to try topicals, but in a beautiful, comfortable setting. So you come in with the shiny, I'm gonna get a massage, I'm gonna get a facial, but not knowing you're gonna learn about 10 or 20 topicals, not learning that you're gonna learn about the endocannabinoid system, because these vendors are gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it during the event. So those events are more prevalent because even if you're not a foodie, you're going to come because you want to find out about these services. And I make sure that the price point is so low so that everybody can come learn about it. But the basis of what we do now is education. Like, I'm real passionate. Oh, you have no, I'm so passionate about educating anybody that wants to know about this plant, that don't think they want to know about this plant. You pass my way, you going to learn about this plant. You're not even going to know you learned about this plant, but when you walk away, you're going to be like, you know what? I might need to try some CBD. I might need to try some THC. Because my thing is, when you say non-traditional, the cannabis community knows about cannabis. It's the people that are not in the industry that don't know. And I feel like it's our job, that our responsibility for those that are in the space and know about it, to speak about this, to do our testimonies, to speak about anybody that you come in contact with that could possibly change your life, to do that for them. Before the pandemic, I was working at an ARU, the biggest ARU on the West Coast, and it had only been open 2 years. My sneaky self,
Tell the audience what an ARU is.
An acute rehab hospital. So in ARU, you have your main hospital, which is acute hospital. You have your ARU, which is an acute rehab. You have your SNF. You have your LTAC. Those are your 4 main categories of facility. ARU is for people that come for acute rehab. So if you have your new paraplegic or quadriplegic, you status post a stroke, status post an accident, you go there to get the combination of the physical therapy with the medical therapy, but they push the physical therapy really, really hard to have physical therapy 3 to 4 hours per day.
Intense.
It's mandatory. It's intense. So I worked in between UCLA and Cedars-Sinai is where the hospital is. So we would get all the regular people, we would get all the entertainers, we would get all of those people in there. But I would tell my doctors, like we were close to MedMen, which is one of the more popular ones here in LA, not necessarily my favorite, but we were close to MedMen. So I would see patients that would come in with their bag full of items from MedMen that they have bought, tinctures, no smoke pills, all of that. I would always fight for our patients that would come in, and the administration would be, this person has weed and they're smoking and they're this. And I'm like, but this person needs that more than that. So my sneaky stuff would be like, doctor, you have a backache? I'm gonna send this massage therapist to you. And I will send them the massage therapist, have the massage therapist massage them with the oil. They would be like, okay, I think this is the person I need to send to have like my patient see and this. So just, it's not only educating people, but showing people cannabis is a plant that you need to show people how it works. And that's what I'm about. So our events are very interactive. Still to this day, they're interactive. I believe if you can touch it, taste it, smell it, that's how you're going to change people's mind, not just talking to them. It doesn't.
You're talking my language, girl. I'm like, everyone needs to smell it. Everyone needs to touch it. Everyone needs to feel it. But it's privilege. It's definitely a privileged medicine. And I know that access is not universal, but I love what you're doing. And I've watched your class. I've followed you now. I'm obsessed. I want my Black History Month box. So,
oh my God, I gotta check that out. Okay.
I'm like, and see, the thing is, she posts stuff and then I get caught up in like regular life. So I'm like, oh, and then I see people, this is what happens. Okay. This is how the FOMO works with Culinary and Cannabis, is because people start posting and they got their little box. And I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot to order my box. So
we should have asked you, do you happen to have a box with you right there? Probably not, because I know you're not at home. But
yeah, because I'm not at home. If I was at home, I have one. I'm not at home. But I told Sandra it's available in Long Beach. But we're gonna have to get Sandra. We're gonna have to get Sandra a box.
I tell her I'm gonna have to take a little road trip and get my box. But here's what I really enjoy. So I got to watch and experience one of your classes. And in that particular class, is it okay for me to share what was?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that particular class, you guys made popsicles. Right? I think it was popsicles. You made I'm like, did you make a candle? There was so many things happening. I think y'all made a candle, a popsicle,
and an oil.
And an oil, a massage oil, shimmer oil. And then you had a massage therapist that came on and he gave some ideas, and he showed my absolute favorite tool, which is that little hook. If y'all watch any of my videos, I'm gonna show my hook. But we showed the hook, and those, what impressed me about your class is not just that you're like, hey, these are really good and they help you and everything else, but it's that you're giving them practical skills that they can apply later on. So after they're done with the class, she's like, don't forget, this is what these tools are for, and this is how they can help you. You feeling a little stressed, go get your oil, put it on. We already had the massage therapist. He told you like places on your body that are good for massage, the reflexology, these things. When you get off of that, class, which I know you were doing in-person things before, but even with the virtual aspect of it, I felt like everyone was learning so many important things, because the biggest barrier is actually touching it. You know what I mean? Like, putting your hands on it feels like a crime, right? And so I think that's amazing, because you break the stigma right there. The fact that you use the word cannabis, I'm happy about too, because they know this is, it's, it is what it is. We're saying it is. There's so many amazing things about that experience that I think has something that we keep kind of alluding to here, which is that you have chosen to do something that is not nursing, but is nursing.
Yeah.
And
she has an outside inside approach, and that's what I like.
Outside, inside. Yes. It's like the world right now. We outside, inside.
You're so
I've
crazy.
had a terrible day, so this is like the best part of my day right now, y'all. I'm just feel like I'm like all over the place.
This is therapy.
But yes, it's my therapy. I love talking to y'all. I love cannabis, nursing, the profession, everything we're doing. Tamara, my gosh, we're gonna do this 10 times. Tamara, one thing that you mentioned to me before was that your son, you had him research and come up with all this information. Was it through his research that you became more knowledgeable about cannabis? Okay.
Yeah, it was through his research and finding out that there's even like different levels, like THC. I didn't know any of that before. My son was the kind that when the butt tenders used to get on their nerves. He was the kid that would go in there and be like, I don't care what the name is. What's the level of THC in there? And they'd be like, what the fuck is you talking about, bro? I don't care. It can be called bubblegum kush. It can be called Queen Gold. He's like, I don't care what the name is. What is the level of THC in there? I need to know what the level and the ratio is so I know if this strain is good for me. He was that's how specific he was. He didn't care about the name. He knew what levels would put him to sleep, would relieve his pain. So me knowing that and him saying that to me totally changed. Mind you, I had seen like Marinol used in the nursing home before for Alzheimer's and dementia patient, but still hadn't realized the intensity and the varieties in which it could be used and that it could help on a regular basis. But then like hearing him and him realizing what it did for him, it made me look, to me, anybody that takes cannabis, the majority of us that use it are using it for a medicinal way. And a lot of times we don't even know it. Well, I take it just for my insomnia. That's a medicinal way. I take it because I got back pain. That's a medicinal way. All of a majority of the ways that we use it on a regular basis, if we're not in a celebratory atmosphere, is for a medicinal way. But we don't even use that because we've been told that it's bad for us, that this is wrong, that this is a drug, that it's going to hurt us. And it's not.
Right. So how did that change the relationship at that point in time with your son? Like, so at first he's like, you know, he's consuming, you're concerned. He has this episode, you make him research, you learn more. Now, what happens with like after that? What are y'all like? How are you supporting him now that you know more about cannabis? How are you able to support him as a parent? And how did that change your relationship, if at all?
Well, I am the kind of mother that has always been put it on the table. My children, if you ever meet them, they're very outspoken. They don't hold anything back. And that's because I'm a single mother. And I would prefer that you be able to tell me about anything than be afraid to tell me something. So even before then, and us fighting about it, it was still like, I know that you have it. I know that this is what you're doing. So for me, it made it so that he would feel more comfortable of sharing with me his experiences, sharing with me the things that he's going to, making sure that he's getting his cannabis from a reliable source. So instead of like getting it from your friend or from the weed man, no, I'm going to take you to the dispensary. I'm going to make sure you have your MedRec card. Like we were always close, but it made it so that he felt comfortable enough. Like, okay, mom, I'm using this and this is what I'm doing for. Or like, mom, I run out of funds. I need some more. Or you know what I mean? Like when I started my brand, even my other business, he was always like, just like my right-hand man. Like my first event that he did, all my volunteers were him and his friends. Like all of them. Wow. They weren't, he brought them all in to help. My first High Times event that I went, he was the person that went with me. I didn't take anybody else. I took my son with me because he was the passion behind what I was doing was for him. So why not bring that with me so that he can learn more and so that he can do more. So he was just, he was my ace in the hole. He was my buddy. He was my, if he was still here now, I'm sure he would have a big cannabis brand. Like he wanted to have edibles. So like,
Well, he has it, and it's your brand. So because when you speak of it, you speak of him. So I equate that to, his brand lives. He lives through your brand. It's pretty much what I'll say. Sandra, I don't have a way right now to check
I'm checking
chat.
now. I don't see any. I see Neek the chat said, "I love you, Tamara."
Love you,
Oh.
That's the only comment that I see on there. But
Okay.
I was gonna ask you. So when you are educating and you're doing these classes and you're working with all different types of people, you are not marketing yourself to health professionals, you're marketing yourself to the world, because that's who you're reaching. So my question is, what have you learned in this education and in talking to people? What has been like your biggest aha that you've had, and what's been the biggest challenge?
So biggest aha, there's very much that surprises me.
Yeah.
Just because I'm expecting everything to be bad, so nothing really has surprised me. Maybe some of the people that consume, but when it comes to the plant, nothing has really, just because I'm expecting to hear the worst out of everybody. I'm expecting to hear the criticism. I'm expecting, maybe the biggest aha has been the actual acceptance from my peers in the field. As far as like the physicians that I work with, and them, saying down the line, well, when it's legal, we want you to lead like these groups and we want to be educated. Maybe that's probably been the biggest, because these are like, square Jewish, not, you know what I'm saying? Like not, but then
yes.
like, can you supply me with some information? And when this comes legal, I want to be interested. I'm very influential, I want to say, maybe is the best word. I've always been this way, but like finding things in people or helping pull things out of people that they don't necessarily see in themselves. Yes. So for instance, there was a doctor that I worked with at the ARU. She came from the East Coast. She moved here. She wanted to open up a holistic practice. And I was like, well, why don't you get educated on cannabis and CBD and just add that to your practice? And she's like, how can I bill about that? And I was like, we could talk about that, because I can help you learn about billing. Because before I went to school for nursing, I was on the side of cannabis insurance. So if you need some help on that, I can help on that. But so that's probably the biggest disappointment.
Or challenge. Like, what's the
I mean, the biggest
because
challenge
you've been in this space for so long, like.
I mean, the biggest challenge is for a challenge I'm having now is finding finding somebody that does marketing and know what they're doing in the cannabis space, because I have this conversation with marketing brands and they're like, we haven't worked with cannabis, but we want to. Okay, if you want to experiment with me, you don't need to be charging me the same price, because I'm not getting no ROI. I'm your test dummy. That's one. And then the other
we
one
understand that, because Sandra and I are kind of going through that now. So yeah, we get that.
Yeah, before you hire anybody, let me know who you're thinking about it, and I'll tell you if they full of shit or not. I'm just saying. So that's one thing. And then, access to, for me, access to capital, because the ideas and the concepts that I have are so out of the box, period. I don't like to do anything that anybody else is doing. So that makes it a challenge. Like even finding someone to write a proper business plan and a business proposal for me is difficult, because I'm like, I want this and this and this, but I need to make sure you know how to write this, this, and this. So those are probably, some of the most difficult things, those things, you know what I mean? Showing up on the front lines and just doing what I'm doing. That's the easy part. It's trying to get to the next step is the difficult part.
Yeah, when you're thinking outside of the box in this industry, is hard, because this industry has it's like a box, a circle, triangles.
Right, I'm trying to fit a square inside a circle.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to put the wrong shapes in here. Do you have something, Ivory, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on asking her, because your skill set is actually unique, because as you were saying, you're of course you're a nurse, and you've done the insurance side and you've done the case management side. And I was just gonna ask you, like, forecasting, because you've been, I was thinking about this the other day, like thinking of just African American or nurses of color that have been in the space, in the cannabis space. You're probably one of the OGs per se, as far as nurses of color that I can think of, because nurses of color haven't been in this newfound space for that long. So I guess just to ask your perspective on where do you see the industry is going, as far as, I don't think on your nursing side that you're dealing with cannabis per se. I know through your business you are, but what do you foresee? Like what are you excited about, or what are you not excited about as far as the future in nursing and cannabis nursing per se?
So first of all, I said this for a really long time, even when I first got into the cannabis industry. Once the VA gets on board with cannabis and fully on board with cannabis and starts allowing vets to pay for prescriptions with cannabis, everybody else is going to fall in line. I do eventually see insurance companies falling in line, because the model of care for insurance companies is changing. For the longest time, it's been like HMO focus, right? Like you go to your provider, and your provider has to refer you out. Your provider tries to keep you in the same line so that they get more revenue from that. They're changing the model of care to be total model of care. So it's not so much, I want to keep you with the PCP and the PCP wants to try to do everything. No, they're actually getting to the point where it's just all of these groups under one umbrella. You get paid regardless of who you see, which makes it different for the physicians, because now they have the freedom and the desire to want to send people out to the different and proper providers to get the proper proper care. Cannabis is definitely a subject that's being talked about between physicians and between health plans. Like even the health plan that I work for, our doctor did a day where we did a day of meditation. Our whole 45-minute meeting was meditation. What the fuck? Meditation, because it's changing. So it will be a topic that is discussed, and they can't ignore the fact that, especially during this pandemic, that cannabis has been deemed essential. So they are looking for the education, but also looking, they don't want to miss any funds. They don't want to miss any money. So it's like figuring that all out together. But I definitely see advancing. I definitely see to a point where it is something that will be covered by insurance. It will something that if your medical provider doesn't know it, I think that there will be a new set of doctors and physicians that are recruited and named in that space. I think that there will be nurses and physicians that are specific on the cannabinoid system, how to use that, how to do medication management. I see that being don't quote me on how soon that will be, but I do see that happening.
I love it. I think Ivory mentioned something on our last little chat that we had, where she was saying, and I'm a paraphrase, not quote, but she said basically, when they came up with the two-person verifier for like insulin, right? She said, we weren't at the table to make those decisions. However, with cannabis, like these decisions are going to need to be made. These policies are going to be in place at our facilities, hospitals, all different places. And we as nurses are going to be able to be at the forefront of, of making those decisions. Like we are going to be at that table making these policies, and what it looks like is really going to be dependent upon us. You know what I'm saying? For us to step up right now, because we're the only ones who are actually able, doctors, a lot of these doctors are restricted by what they can,
say or do.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Now I do have a question for you, because you started off and you were doing this more as a culinary thing. You were saying like you were doing the infused alcohol, desserts. And then you started, kind of dabbling in this area. Did you, when you first started, because this is one of those questions that I always like to know, but did you come out and were like, I'm a nurse and I'm doing this, or did you keep those things very separate?
I didn't even say I was Black, let alone a nurse.
Wow.
I didn't. I purposely, in all of my marketing, I don't think my picture was revealed until 2 weeks before our first event, because I've been in that space on the food and wine space there are no event productions of food and wine events that are produced by a person of color. There are none. I was doing something new. I was doing something out of the box. I was putting myself up against like High Times, because High Times did food events. So I was like, I want to make sure I have to prove myself first on what I'm doing, because if you go in there at the time and you're Black already, it's going to be an automatic no, because this is something that's new. This is something that hasn't been done before. So no. And even on my profile right now, I don't even think it says that I'm a nurse, which is something that needs to change. But it's just, in the beginning, it was intentional. And the job that I had at the time, my boss, how do I say, I didn't publicly announce that I was a nurse, but my boss and my coworkers knew this is something that I was doing, because I was so passionate about it. I talked about it all the time. So my boss at the time knew, when I started this venture, knew that this is something that I was doing. I think, when did I get laid off from there? Mind you, I think I've been laid off 3 times in my life. I got laid off from that job, I think 6 months into starting the business and the brand. So when I got laid off, I took the year off. I was like, okay, fuck it.
That was your break.
You want to marry me? Yeah, I was like, forget it. I'm just gonna do this full time. So I took the whole year off. But that's why they laid me off. It was because I started a cannabis brand.
Wow.
And you know, I think that's so important.
Right there, Ivory, just for 1 second, please.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm not even gonna say anything. I feel like we could just end the show right now.
We can.
Right?
We can. But I have to say this, because we just had this. It's funny. We could talk to you all night, but this is the life. So when people be like, "It's no degree of separation," this is the life of a person of color in this cannabis space, even now. So I earlier this week, when I was talking to Sandra about whatever, it's not that I hide my cannabis advocacy, but for me, well, first of all, like you just said, when you still work in a workplace, it's hard because, you know, your industry hasn't accepted it yet. So that's one barrier. But it's not that I hide it, but it's just easier just to, whenever I do anything about, you know, cannabis, whatever, it's on my business pages and go from there. It's just easier, and it shouldn't be that separate, you know, it should not be. And anyway, I could go on and on and on, but I just wanted to
not only that, look, what you're doing on the side and what you do to your 9 to 5, it shouldn't interfere.
Exactly.
It shouldn't interfere. What I decide to do on my free time should have nothing to do with what I'm doing and what I'm here. Mind you, when they laid me off, they had to hire 2 people to replace me, because the bitch is efficient. So like, okay, you want to. And the girl who worked with me, she quit too. So they had to, it took them 2 people to replace me, because I was a case manager. My caseload was 60 a day. I was doing 85 to 120 cases review a day. So you want to let me go because I started that's on you. That's your bad. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's what you want to do. I can see if I was a crappy employee, I wasn't on time. No, I was on time. I was efficient. I came in and restructured the whole department that I was in. They had a backlog of like 800 cases when I came there. When I came, all cases was done every day. I'm not playing that shit. I don't want no mess. I don't want to be looking through 500 cases for a case. So it's like, I was just like, okay, this is what's calling me. I'm not doing.
Yeah. That's so it's I know nurses, the ones that have gone full throttle, you know, into this space, they've either had to make the choice to just leave the industry or they have would leave like traditional nursing, or they are like on a part-time basis. And you know, so it's definitely a struggle. It's almost like you got to make a choice what side you're on, or it's just a whole level. So I'm so glad that you shared that experience, because I was kind of feeling it makes you just feel some kind of way, because you feel like you shouldn't have to, but because we hold a professional license, and because our industry is not yet at the table, and putting it out there, we are nurses of color. And so we are seeing that nurses of color are struggling, that, you know, our punishment is more intense than our counterparts. So we got to think twice before we just, just go out there and lay things on the line. So I'm glad you, shared that experience and gave us more enlightenment on it. And I'm done, Sandra, because I can go on and on.
No, that's perfect. So I just wanted to share, we did have some comments. I wanted to go ahead and read those. So Brandy C says, I love that you have created your own nursing practice. You are an inspiration. I hope to do the same with cannabis and fitness. Do it, Brandy. No one's gonna pump you more than me. I'm all about people finding the lane, because I feel like there's so much opportunity if people just niche, find their happy space. Tashiana says, how can we get her classes, even if it's virtual? I love cooking and baking, so she is someone I would love to connect with. Culinary and Cannabis.com is her website. You can go on there and you can follow her on social media at Culinary and Cannabis. And then Tashiana also says, I walked away from an employer because they questioned my business page on edibles off hours. So,
wow.
There was that article that came out this week. I don't know if you had a chance, or even if that even came across your space. I should have posted it in the group, but I have been not able to. But the article basically was nurses face disciplinary actions or whatever for consuming cannabis or whatever it was. I am paraphrasing all of this, but the article basically showed that while cannabis is becoming legal in many states, there's no protection for nurses. Workplaces are still, employers are still drug testing. Nurses are, and they use the word popping positive, which, sounds like popping pills, but okay.
Right, why would you?
So they're popping positive. They also shared that this particular nurse did not know that her full spectrum CBD had THC in it. So she didn't think she was gonna pop positive for THC. And then she failed her employment screening test. The employer did not hire her. They reported her to the board. I think she paid a $500 fine, but then she was able to get her license. Her license wasn't, I think she was still able to keep her license. And then she sued the company and was able to win, but specifically because in Connecticut, they have a law, employment protection laws for cannabis patients. So, it's one of those things where we're in California. I'm a nurse in California too. There was no time when I felt like it was okay for my employer to know that I use cannabis. There was no time when I felt like it was okay for me to share that I was doing any of this on the side. I did a lot of little chats with my coworkers at times. And then I realized even in those small settings amongst the case managers I worked with, it was not something that people felt comfortable discussing, especially at work. I remember somebody said, I would really probably, what did they say? If I were you, I would just kind of simmer down a little bit about all the cannabis talk. And I'm like, well, what happened was I was going to a conference. I was excited. So I was telling them, yeah, I'm going to be going to this cannabis conference, blah, blah, blah. And people were kind of like, what? Why is she talking about that here? And I work at a hospital system where, when you use cannabis, it shows up on your record as, smoked weed or whatever. It's never like the patient uses cannabis for pain. It's like,
right.
It's always in a derogatory fashion that they, put these things in their notes. So I definitely get it. I mean, it's still, my husband said the other day, you guys are, I feel like everybody says stigma, but it's more than that. It's the fear. And I'm like, yeah, it is a fear, which is part of the stigma, but it is. I mean, I feared losing my license. I felt it was safer for me not to be in that environment because I didn't want my license to be taken away without me doing anything wrong at my job. You know what I'm saying? Just for using the medication that I felt was right for me. And I still feel that way now. I feel like, oh, if I go and I work at an employer and they find out that this is the medication of my choice, or if they Google me, let's just be real now, because that's what people do now when they hire you, they Google you, right? They're gonna Google me and they're gonna be like, wait a minute, this is the Kushner. She's talking about cannabis.
I just give all my coworkers CBD. Oh, you got a pain here? Let's try this. Oh, you got pain there? Oh, just try this. So if I get in trouble, we all getting in trouble. Everybody going. Everybody
there
gonna
you
get
go.
fired.
That's a good strategy. You got to get them all on the plant.
I get them all on board. Everybody in the office, everybody.
Right.
You got Paige, you got everybody on board. Everybody. So if I'm going down, y'all are going down with me.
So Tamara, have you totally left corporate America? Or are you still in that zone?
I'm still in there. I work a 9 to 5 for a inpatient case manager for a health plan that I work for right now. So my coworkers know, my supervisor know. I went through a temp agency. They knew. I just don't put it on my social media because I would rather work somewhere, fill it out, and then if I feel comfortable, tell them, versus like you say, putting it on here and then you find out about it. Although I don't even have a LinkedIn for like my nursing. I don't have one, but I have one for my business. So
let me ask you a question. And this is a question specifically for cannabis nurses, because there's a lot of people that's in this industry and they're going to be listening to this. And, you know, everybody kind of feels like, I think there's a part of us that enters this space with our lab jacket on. That's what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you come into the space and you're like, I'm going to wear my lab jacket and I'm going to carry my journal nursing, you know, guide for medical marijuana patients. And I'm going to go and do all this amazing stuff. But at the end of the day, this all hasn't together. So we're not going into these roles that we think in our head. We're having to do these out of the box roles. So one of the things that, you know, and I'm just asking this, that people ask me this all the time, is when you go into this field, you know, if for nurses that are going into this field, what would be something that you would tell them is the most important thing? Because yes, the education and the knowledge is like super, I mean, I think that's like the most important thing. But when they're working with people, with individuals, like, you know, what do you think is the like something that a nurse could really glean from your experience and what you've been doing that they can apply to their real life scenarios when they go out into cannabis nursing?
I mean, just listening to people, listening to what they want, listening to what they need, not applying what you think is best for somebody, like literally listening to what they need. Because if you listen to what someone needs, you can help them find a solution. It's the best thing that I could tell you to do. If you're going to step into the space, be prepared, you know, for the struggles that come with it. But like you said, you're going to hand out education, but you need to first yourself get educated. So embed yourself in groups, embed yourself in networks, read as much as you can so that when a question is posed to you, you can answer the question. And you also can go, here's the thing, this field is so new, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel with what you're already doing. Mm-hmm. Take with what you're already doing and turn it green. Just figure out how to turn that green for yourself. Even being a nurse, like I'm a case manager nurse. I foresee in the future being able to manage cases for patients that are transitioning from narcotics to cannabis.
Absolutely.
So I don't plan on leaving the corporate because I need to be here as well. When it gets to the point where it's okay, they're going to need nurses with the education to supply that. So that's one reason why I don't leave Piper. Why you don't leave? Because I don't need to leave. I'm going to be needed in this space. Eventually, this space is going to need you. So I'm not going to leave. If you're going to fire me, you're going to fire me. But I don't plan on leaving. I don't plan on going anywhere.
And you're in that part, you're so right about, because there is going to be a need. Yeah, and it's funny because all three of us are case managers, so we can have a sidebar conversation at another time about that. But you're right, and insurance companies are already looking at claims. You know, I tell people they're not going to announce it, but they're looking at utilization. Their bottom line is, how can I save money? And if I gotta accept cannabis claims, we don't want to. But if I have to, so they're already looking at that, looking at utilization, reviewing medical notes and all of that. And they are going to need nurses like us who are familiar with the space on the cannabis side and the insurance side to help them with that. So you're exactly right about that. It's like, we're here, you just don't know it yet.
Yeah. I love what
we're waiting.
I love what you said, where you said, stay doing what you're doing and turn it green. Like,
yes. Yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, that's really kind of what inspired me to come into this area, because I had always worked with moms and people with, you know, in community. And I was like, okay, how can I turn that into what I'm doing? You know what I'm saying? How can I marry this together? Because I love nurses and healthcare professionals, and I'll teach them, you know, I'm here to teach, but that's not like what lights me up. You know what I'm saying? Like what lights me up is working with individuals, working with people, working in the community. And, you know, I feel that, you know, what you said was so key, because when you are, you know, if you go and follow her on Instagram or any of these other places, when she's talking about what she's doing and when she's hosting people on her Instagram live and, you know, sharing about what's in the box and different workshops and all that, she lights up. You know, it's like Ivory, when Ivory talks about policy and politics, and I'm like, thank God for Ivory, so I don't have to score through.
Right, so if you want to put it together, I'd be like, what did you? I don't know.
I know, but she puts it together so perfect, you know. And that's the thing. It's like when you are in when you commit to those areas, even if it's not where you're going to be forever, I feel like it really helps people understand what it is that you do, who you are, who you serve, and why you're needed. You know, and then the other thing is, like, I mean, I have somebody come today and ask me for some, you know, help with CBD, and I was thinking to myself, I was expecting that. But because now I'm out here talking about it all the time, people are like, well, she must know something, so let's go talk to her. But the truth is that what they do know is that what I do know is that you become a trusted source for people. You become someone that people respect. They know that, you know, you're holding things to the highest standard. And when they find out you're a nurse, it like elevates that, you know, 10 notches up. So, you know, I'm so proud to be in this space. I'm so proud to have you on here today, because what I love, you know, as I've been following you, what I also love is that you are not, like I said before, you're educating the masses, and that's a hard space. Educating the masses is hard, because people are coming to you with, you know, zero knowledge sometimes, you know what I'm saying? And that's an exciting place to be. But it's also challenging, you know what I mean? Because literally, I mean, I feel that sometimes when people are asking me questions, and I'm like, you don't want to feel like you're steering people, right? But you also want to feel like you're steering people, you know, because you want to be able to show them how beneficial this plant is. So I'm going to see if there's any more questions. I don't think we had any more questions on here, but I did want you to tell us what you have going on coming up, how we can stay connected with you, you know, and impart your wisdom before we end this wonderful call. Because I'm like, I don't want to go now. I want to stay with Tamara and talk about
everything. Yeah.
Well, it is February, which is Black History Month. So in honor of Black History Month, we are doing a celebration of Black cannabis. And what that is on February 28th, we have a virtual event. But in combination with that, we have a curated box that has all brands, cannabis brands, 100% owned by a Black person. So I think right now we have 16 brands in the box. I have 3 meetings today to try to get 3 more in there, but we have 16 brands in the box. We wanted to make sure we had THC or flower products in the box. So the box there's a limited 100 of them. It is being distributed out of Southern California from the Long Beach Green Room. It is up for delivery, I think, in like a 20-mile radius. Other than that, you can come to Long Beach and pick it up. They will be available for pickup after the 15th. They are $90, which you can purchase them online. But we have social equity brands in there. We have brands from New York, from Florida. We have a variety of brands in there. So we have flowers, we have topicals, we have edibles in the box. Also in the box comes with some history on the past, the present, and the virtual event on the 28th is talking about where we're going in the future of cannabis. So we'll have like cultivators on there talking about marketing, talking about a variety of things for people to get into the space. So that's what we have coming on for the month of February, and it is in combination with the Cannabis Babes. So we are also interviewing a majority of the brands on our IG Live, so you can tune in for that calendar for that. What else do I have going on? Somebody else asked me this early today. And then I'm doing Blacks Built Cannabis. It is a 3-day event happening the last 3 days of February, and I will be doing a cooking episode on the 28th for that as well. We've taken a break for February for our DIY workshops and boxes, but coming back in March, we have one which should be the last Saturday of each month, and that will be our Equinox box. So we will talk about Equinox. We will make, I think we're making bath bombs. So I'm excited about that. And then April, I don't know what we're doing in April. It's my birthday. It's 420. I'm turning 45. Hopefully we can go outside. We'll see. But, you know, follow us at culinaryancannabis.com. Our social media links are there. We're always doing education. We're always doing classes. Feel free to DM me if you have questions. I'm good for you if you're starting in the industry. But once you get a certain point, I will pass you off to someone else. But if you're looking and you have questions and if you're curious, I'm there to answer your questions. So that's what we got going on.
Yay.
I love it. You have
doing it.
lit a fire under me to make sure I get my box.
Yes, you get mine too, Sandra. When you go pick yours up.
So I did the CBD brands. Ishka, my collaborative partner, did the THC brands, right? There are 6 THC brands in this box. There are 3 pre-rolls and 3 eighths in the box. Premium. Wow. $90. You can't even get all that for $90 if you go in the dispensary on your own. That's so awesome. Yeah, we got some CBD oils in there, some sensual oils, it's a nice variety of goodies in that box. Say a nice variety.
I like it. Well, I appreciate you so much. I know you're not home and you're traveling and you have things going on. We just appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Ivory, I don't know if you wanted to close us out with anything.
I was just going to close us out with our social, but of course you got to do that because is it Canna Nurses, CNOC?
There you go.
Canna Nurses with the S, CNOC across all social media.
Yes. So please follow us. This video will come back and answer any questions, and hopefully we'll have Tamara on again. This was an amazing discussion. We're so excited always to see, you guys doing all these cool things in the industry. We're all babies in this game, but I appreciate when I have, people like Tamara who's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and to show you that it is a tough road. It's a hard industry, but yet, you're able to take these lemons and make lemonade. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Culinary and Cannabis, Tamara Anderson.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
CNOC and all of our listeners. Yes. All right. You guys have a good night.
Bye.
Good night. Bye, ladies.
Bye.